A yellow alert has been issued for parts of England by the UK Health Security Agency, and that means particularly vulnerable people, perhaps the elderly, and those with multiple health conditions are likely to struggle to cope with the heat. It comes as new research from the Warm This Winter campaign suggests that 4.5 million people have been so hot in their own homes it's made them ill in the last year. So, with the new government obviously looking to kickstart something of a house building boom, what should we all be doing to ensure that new homes are better suited to our changing climate? Cara Jenkinson is Cities Manager for climate solutions charity Ashden. Hello, Cara, how are you?
Hi there, hi.
Tell us a little bit about this then. The idea that new homes need to be better suited to our changing climate. This, I guess, depends on how certain we can be about what our changing climate is going to look like. What do you understand it to be looking like as we view it from the perspective of 2024?
Yes, well, I think we're fairly sure that there are going to be more extreme weather events happening over the next few years, and that's both flooding, increased risk of flooding, and also increased risk of heat waves, such as we're having right now. Yeah, that's increasing steadily.
Okay. So heat waves, I mean, yes, it's hot in the south of England today, and it perhaps will be tomorrow, and it was relatively hot yesterday. It's not, unless you are very vulnerable, it's not appalling, is it?
I think it depends what sort of home you live in. I think over the last 10 years, we've had 500,000 homes being built that are people are already at risk of really suffering from overheating. So if you're in a small flat in a city centre with lots of big glass windows,
Yeah.
you're going to be feeling very hot right now.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I absolutely take your point. I mean, why isn't that thought through then when the plans for the block of flats, for example, are drawn up?
Yes, it's a very good question because we've kind of known how to do this for at least the last 10 to 15 years. And there are some great examples of social housing developments, such as in Norwich and Exeter, that are doing this just right. But we've only recently had a change in the rules to say that developers must consider this. So that came in last year. And so we can expect that developers now will be building properties that are more suited to deal with the extreme heat.
And what will that mean? Will they be more expensive? Will they be smaller, bigger? Will they have fewer windows? What?
They will probably have smaller windows and they will have windows with external shading. So they'll probably look a bit more like homes on the continent, where we'd see shutters outside to protect against the heat. We'd also expect to see them with windows not just on one wall, because the problem with when you have windows just on one wall, you can't open it and get airflow coming through. It's
Right.
called cross ventilation. And if you don't have that, then you're just not going to be able to cool the property. So we'd expect to see homes that have windows on multiple sides of the building. So yeah, that's what we'd expect to see.
The people suffering right now in the extreme heat, they won't necessarily be in newish flats, will they? I mean, some of them will be living in, I don't know, in basements or in relatively small terraced houses that were built over a century ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in terms of people with vulnerabilities, actually the private rented sector is probably the worst. And there's not much enforcement of standards there. And if you're living, as you say, in a basement, with really poor ventilation, damp, etc. Yeah, then yeah, absolutely, there are real issues there, and that is more expensive to rectify. I think it's very important when the government brings in the new energy efficiency standards for private rented sector homes
Mm.
that they don't just look at the dangers from being too cold, but they also look at the risks from being too hot as well.
Right. I mean, which of the two would you rather be? And I don't mean that in a fatuous way, but is it better for your health to be too hot every now and again or too cold through the winter, which we do hear about more often?
Well, both are bad for health, for different reasons, for different illnesses. Probably right now there are more people dying from cold homes rather than warm homes. But as temperatures rise and we get more extreme weather events, that balance will probably shift. So we really need to be looking at both aspects.
Can I just, in the private rented sector, if you are just stifling in your flat or house right now, is it the duty of your landlord to do something about it? Are they supposed to turn up with a fan for you?
Not right now. I think the really the focus on health hazards has been around cold homes rather than warm homes. So they aren't necessarily obliged to do that right now, but it's an area that needs increasing focus.
And to the idea of the house building boom that Labour are keen to kickstart for any number of good reasons, by the way, we should say, if we do take proper account of our changing climate, will that be harder, and will the homes necessarily be more expensive?
I think that potentially they will be more expensive in terms of having to put additional measures in, like shading solutions. However, in the long run, they'll actually be cheaper to run because we won't have to put in things like air conditioning, which could end up being really expensive for the occupants to run. So yes, there'll be some investment needed up front, and part of that investment will be in the training of our construction workers, who, to date haven't needed to know much about the kind of the building physics, how heat moves through a building,
Mm.
how moisture moves through a building. That's just not been part of construction training, and we need to get that in right now. So yes, there will be some short-term cost, but there will be long-term savings in terms of bills down the line.
Just very briefly, what is your take on air conditioning? If you are fortunate enough to be considering installing it in your home in the UK, should you?
I think the issue there is cost for the person running it. Also, it will increase electricity demand, so we might need more pylons and more energy
Yeah. So
generating
you're
infrastructure.
contributing to the problem, aren't you?
You are contributing to the problem. So it's always best to look at what they call passive cooling measures. So whether it's a fan on the ceiling or just the way you build a property or the shading I mentioned before, that's a much more kind of climate friendly way of dealing with overheating.
Thank you very much for your time. Cara Jenkinson, Cities Manager for the charity Ashden, which looks at climate solutions.